As the disgraced Andrew Mountbatten Windsor looks particularly downcast during a public outing, experts warn the headache for the royals is far from over. The emotional fallout from Andrew's final humiliation is now playing out publicly, creating a fresh crisis of optics and empathy within the House of Windsor, revealing a stark contrast in management styles between King Charles III and Prince William. The final humiliation, William's stone wall. The deterioration of relations between Andrew and the future king had reached an inflection point just weeks before his titles were stripped. Not long before Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost the final shred of his royal identity, Prince William made it painfully clear that relations had deteriorated to an all-time low with his disgraced uncle. The awkwardness was almost unbearable to witness. In scenes so awkward they made royal watchers wince, Andrew was spotted trying to strike up a conversation with the future king when he unexpectedly turned up to Duchess of Kent's funeral in September. The royal silence that followed spoke volumes. William did not respond to comments made by his uncle, who stood by his side on the steps of Westminster Cathedral, staring straight ahead and barely acknowledging the ex-duke's presence. This calculated, icy dismissal from William was not just personal, it was a potent signal of the monarchy's official position. The king's fury and the loss of Royal Lodge. Just weeks after the service, the axe finally fell. Andrew relinquished his royal titles and honors in a 10-minute phone call with weary and furious King Charles. The swiftness and brevity of the call underscore the monarch's exhaustion and rage over the ongoing scandal. The humiliation was compounded by the final, grudging agreement over his sprawling residence. The monarch's humiliated younger brother also finally agreed to give up his 30-room mansion, Royal Lodge, after Charles spent years trying to free the crumbling property from Andrew's clutches. The battle over the tenancy had been a symbol of Andrew's defiance, as his cast-iron lease meant that Andrew had to agree to vacate on his own terms, despite barely paying any rent on the estate for more than 20 years. The loss of Royal Lodge is the ultimate physical manifestation of Andrew's fall from grace. The psychological aftermath, isolation and the downcast pose. Since Andrew's world came crumbling down last month, the reports of his state have been grim. He has spent his last days in Royal Lodge wandering around alone while ranting to himself, according to royal sources. This image of isolation is profoundly affecting. Increasingly isolated, the former prince has barely left his residence, and has only been spotted a couple of times while horse riding on the grounds of the Windsor estate. Today, the world saw the result of this internal turmoil. He was pictured looking particularly downcast while out riding with a companion. However, the political and legal storm rages on. The headache for Andrew and the royals is far from over, as the ex-duke has faced calls from U.S. lawmakers to testify on his long-standing friendship with the late billionaire pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. The performance of pity, a final, desperate tactic. Body language expert Judy James views the public display of sadness with skepticism, suggesting it is a deliberate pivot from his previous confrontational stance. But according to body language expert Judy James, this sudden shift in demeanor might be less about genuine sadness and more about a calculated change in tactics. The staging of the sorrow is almost theatrical, according to Judy. The expert believes this latest outing is a last-ditch effort for emotional leverage. The expert believes his latest outing could be one last attempt to garner sympathy from the public and his older brother. Andrew could of course be feeling understandably sad, she says. But this could also be performative if he's realized the arrogant, defiant displays didn't work. Having failed with arrogance, Andrew may be attempting to succeed with pity. The Great Divide: Charles's worry versus William's duty of care. The internal split within the senior royals over how to handle Andrew is highly illuminating. Royal experts have pointed out that while Charles will likely be seething over Andrew being photographed while still enjoying the perks of his Windsor estate, fearful of how this could tarnish the public image of the scandal-hit monarchy, William feels a duty of care towards his fallen uncle. Jenny Bond, former royal correspondent at the BBC, believes the reactions of Andrew's new neighbors, William and Princess Kate, will be mixed. The Waleses now live just 2 miles away from Andrew, having moved to Forest Lodge earlier this month. Bond argues that the Waleses, despite their personal feelings, adhere to a sense of familial obligation. While there is no love lost between William, Catherine and Andrew, my understanding is that they, and the rest of the royal family, believe they still have a duty of care for his welfare and mental health. Andrew is reported to have become isolated, depressed and solitary. Bond dismisses the idea that the Waleses would resent the photos. It's not his fault if photographers are ready to pounce if he dares to venture out, and I don't think the prince and princess would begrudge him a ride around the park and some fresh air. Obviously it would be more convenient if it wasn't on their doorstep, but they know that this is about to end and he will be living miles away in Sandringham. Meanwhile, Charles will be worried about the optics of such snaps. The king is hyper-focused on safeguarding the monarchy's brand. I think the king will feel it's unfortunate that pictures of Andrew are in the press again, drawing attention away from the work the rest of the family are doing, Jenny said. It would obviously be much better if Andrew were seen doing something for charity, or anything other than idly amusing himself. However, he is so toxic that no one wants him anywhere near their organization. The king's frustration stems from Andrew's toxicity constantly undermining the good works of the rest of the family. The scrapped confrontation and the role of William. It's likely a sore subject for the king, as just days before Andrew was stripped of his titles, Charles reportedly planned a dramatic confrontation that was ultimately aborted. Emily Maitlis, who famously grilled Andrew in his car crash Newsnight interview, alleged the plan had been put in place when the king arrived back in the UK from his trip to the Vatican last month. The media anticipation was immense. Broadcast crews and photographers gathered outside the gates of Royal Lodge amid speculation there could be further developments in the long-running controversy surrounding the late Queen's second son. Maitlis claimed the king intended a highly visible display of authority. What we learned what was going to happen on Thursday was that Charles, fresh from the Vatican and his audience with the Pope, was going to come via Royal Lodge to be seen, in other words, reading the riot act to his brother. The palace, however, panicked at the intense media scrutiny. Nobody was going to film the conversation or see him stepping out the car, but there was going to be the moment caught on camera of King Charles' car heading to Royal Lodge. What happened, I understand, was that the palace then got very nervous, and when they saw the choppers and helicopters, they thought this has all got too big, this has got out of control, they cancelled the whole thing. The king just went straight home and never came by. The aborted mission underscores the monarchy's constant fear of losing control of the narrative. Kate and William were said to have fully supported the king when he took formal action over his brother's royal titles amid ongoing scrutiny about Andrew's links to Epstein. William's involvement was instrumental. William is always understood to have wanted to take decisive action over his uncle, with previous reports claiming it became somewhat of a pinch point for father and son. Royal author Andrew Lowney confirmed William's influential role, told the Mirror that William likely played a significant role in stiffening his father's determination to take further action against Andrew. From what I know of him and his father, William would have played quite an active role in stiffening Charles' resolve, Lowney said. But I think particularly after Charles was heckled and the continuing press coverage, which was a distraction from all the other things he wanted to do, like pray at the Vatican, he's realized just how serious this is. The source of William's frustration was the lack of swiftness. Meanwhile, a source told the Daily Beast that William was allegedly dismayed by the earlier, much softer approach to Andrew's royal status, which only removed the Duke of York title. William saw the danger in allowing any remnants of his uncle's former life to linger. With Andrew still living in Royal Lodge and having the right to be referred to as Prince, William is said to have feared future repercussions. The outlet even suggested that William ultimately saw the Andrew problem as his father's mess to deal with. It said, William has long grasped that the monarchy has been held hostage by Andrew's scandal and knew a ransom would have to be paid. Andrew walked away from the royals with a deal worth millions. The emotional toll on the king is immense. It's long been claimed that Andrew's troubles have had a deep affect on King Charles, with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's biographer Omid Scobie claiming in his 2023 book Endgame that the monarch was once reduced to tears over the ex-duke's mental health. Scobie wrote, King Charles was in tears because he was afraid for Andrew's mental health. Charles leads with his head and his heart. William is colder. The contrast is clear. Charles is guided by heart and duty of care, while William prioritizes the long-term survival and image of the crown. Andrew's melancholic horseback ride is thus not just a personal moment, but a poignant visual manifestation of the painful, ongoing split between the king's empathy and the future king's strategic